since Iowa, kind of a handful of people voted out there, and in terms of putting it in perspective. And I think some exit polls came out and said that people wanted change. So naturally, politicians all jumped and turned around. Their political advisors all revamped their messages. And so change is a big deal. The fact of the matter is, since at least the time of Cicero, change has been a part of the political lexicon for any politician trying to get into office in this world. If you're not running for re-election, you're an agent of change. Because there's so many things not going the way we'd like them to. I mean, that's the nature of the world. That's the nature of life. And certainly the nature of government. When I said a while ago, I referred to change, that telling the truth about fundamental issues concerning our country would be a pleasant change. I wasn't being facetious. I think the president has got to use the bully pulpit. I think it's the most important thing he does is communicating with the American people. Because if he's got them on his side, anything is possible. And if he doesn't, nothing is possible. And nowadays, with the problems that face our country and the challenges that we have, it's vital that the president communicate with people and have their trust. You only get trust by being a known truth teller. That doesn't mean that people lie about things. It means sometimes that you don't like to talk about things that are difficult to talk about. I think we could have done a better job on the front end of this situation in Iraq. We just kind of laid the cards on the table and said, look, we went down there for the right reasons, and if we hadn't have gone down there, Saddam would be running that part of the world, he and his crazy sons, having defeated the United States and the United Nations and developing nuclear weapons in all probability. So we need to keep that in mind. But we ran into a situation we didn't anticipate. Now it's going to be longer and tougher than we anticipated. It's going to cost more. And we need to buckle up. Because the worst thing in the world we could do is to be run out of there with our tail between our legs. And for all the obvious reasons. And so let's get it done instead of like it's going to be, don't pay any attention to this, we'll solve it for you, it's going to be over real quick and that sort of thing. So I think it's a change of attitude, it's a change of approach. I mean, you could go down the list of policies. I mean, energy policy, we've let that drag for too long. Now that's become a crisis, just like the illegal immigration problem has, because we didn't address these things that are on the horizon. Well, the other big thing that's on the horizon is the bankruptcy of the next generation. We're eating through our Social Security surplus now. We're taking in a little more than we're paying out in Social Security. That's going to be gone in a few years. We're eating right through it. It's going to be into the red. And then we're going to be facing as the baby boomers start retiring this year, and it's going to be more and more and more and more, thankfully, because we're living longer, healthier lives, greater life expectancy. But it just simply means that we're going to have to make some adjustments. We got growing numbers of people on the retirement end, and a fewer proportionate number of workers in the workforce paying into those retirement programs. Numbers won't work. And I've suggested a couple of common sense things with regard to Social Security, which would save Social Security if we implemented it. But nobody wants to talk about that stuff. Change is taking place right under our feet. Nobody wants to deal with it or talk about it. They want to talk about a 10-point program to guarantee everybody everything that they want immediately, today, tomorrow. I mean, that's changed, but it's not honest. And in most cases, it's not what the federal government ought to be doing.
Let's talk a little bit about the Second Amendment. We hear the Bush administration filing a brief to support the District of Columbia with the case that's going through the Supreme Court as we speak. Governor Huckabee a few weeks back made a big show about supporting the Second Amendment and then turned and violated every rule that the NRA teaches you in gun safety class. I'm curious. And I don't know if he was the C student in that class or not, but in a Fred Thompson administration, where do we see the Second Amendment standing?
Well, the Second Amendment will be safe in a Fred Thompson administration, I can assure you of that. All you have to do is check my record on that. For 8 years, I was a consistent defender of the Second Amendment. And at times when it wasn't all that easy, we don't have a lot of political controversy about the Second Amendment today. The facts that you pointed out are in the courts. It's another story we can talk about here in a minute. But on the political front, the Democrats kind of gave up on that. And they gave up because we won battle after battle after battle. And they come up with a law about every 30 days, some way that, well, we'll come up with something now that nobody can afford to be against because it sounds so good. And it was just another camel's nose under the tent kind of a deal. When they tried, we beat them back. And finally, we had a couple of elections where they got beat about the head and shoulders on election day. And they decided that they would not make the Second Amendment a big issue anymore. I mean, do you hear anybody on the Democratic side going out and talking about Second Amendment issues or the need for gun control or anything like that? Don't hear that anymore. That was because of the good old days and the work that we did back then.